This is a part of a V1 rocket. Not long ago we found a nice piece of clean sheet metal from it. It was from the top side of the rocket. And on this trip we're gonna visit Mittelbau-Dora. It's in the middle of Germany, an underground factory where they made the V1 and V2 rockets, accompanied by a camp for the prisoners who did all the work there. I'm gonna make a very nice episode about it, show you all the information about the site. Deutschland, geil! Bunker! Bunkeren! Yeah, 1 more hour to go. Still making jokes along the way, but upon arrival you really got a total different atmosphere about the site Mittelbau-Dora. I'll explain a bit about the site. It was a Nazi concentration camp located near Nordhausen, established in 1943 as a subcamp of Buchenwald, supplying slave labor for all the countries. In the tunnels nearby, V1 and V2 rockets were made. In the summer of 1944, Mittelbau became an independent concentration camp with various subcamps besides it. You can see it on the side. It's really big. In 1945, most of the surviving inmates were sent on death marches or crammed in trains or cars by the SS. On April 1945, US troops freed the remaining prisoners. The inmates at Dora-Mittelbau were treated in a brutal and inhumane manner, working 14-hour days and being denied access to basic hygiene, beds and adequate rations. Around 1 in 3 of the roughly 60,000 prisoners who were sent here died. That's around 20,000 people. Today there is a memorial and museum. And as you see us drive in, you will notice the size of this camp. It's just really impressive. So we're gonna give you a small tour, but most of the tour will be silent. This time a little bit sober episode. I know our previous ones were always with a big laugh. At the site we are now, we keep it a bit mild, as you will understand later on. I've brought a piece with me for this episode. It's a piece of a V1 rocket. And on the site where we are now used to be an old factory that produced V1 and V2 rockets. These were made by prisoners, and right now we're at the Dora-Mittelbau concentration camp. The factory was built in the mountains to avoid bombings. So yes, this episode, a very sober one on V1 Relics. And as you can see, this is one of the original buildings on the site here. It's a very huge site, stretching over 2 kilometers, really impressed me when we arrived here in the mountains over there. We will go there later on. You will see the entrances into the mountain itself where trains went in. So we're gonna give you a tour on this side and give some extra information about it. Yeah, right now we're standing at the foundations of a former barrack which housed the prisoners. I think it measures roughly 10 meters by 50 meters. It housed 500 inmates in each barrack. In every bed, in the end, used to sleep 5 people. They had shifts in when people could sleep because there simply was no space. Because many of the prisoners had terrible work here inside the mountain. Conditions were very harsh. Many already died in the first weeks after arrival here. So yes, this definitely was one of the worst camps around. Up here you see a photo of when the Americans liberated the camp. Well, people have their eyes open, but as you can imagine, there are more dead than alive. But now we're standing at a small memorial for the dead marches that were leaving from the camps with the Allied advances. All camps were emptied of any prisoners. A couple of days before they emptied this camp, the British attacked the village up here with aircraft, and that accelerated the process of clearing the camp. The marches were really brutal. Anybody who could not keep up was shot dead. From here people had to march to other death camps. Many did not arrive and did not survive these marches. And if they did, the chance was really big that at the other camps they were murdered in the end anyway. That was the main section of the camp where most of the barracks were. Now we're heading towards the railway station and the tunnel entrances where the V1 and V2 rockets were built. A surrealistic sight, as you can see, with all the greenery. There were hardly any people. The site is open to public anytime, so it's always worth a visit. The museum and tunnel was closed this time, but I think we will be back to see that. Behind me here you see the old Bahnhof or railway station. The site here was so big with all its factories that it had its actually own train station. Here you still see the traces of the tracks on the ground. They marked it with gravel. It's really impressive, all the work that went into this site. The amount of people that worked here under terrible circumstances. This is just a dark reminder of the past. Here is one of the entrances into the tunnel complex. This is where a train track used to be, going into the tunnels. And it's hard to imagine that thousands of people have died here digging these tunnels and afterwards. Here is a photo just after the liberation from these tunnels. You can see camouflage nets here. Up here you can see the big balls. Those are the air pressure tanks from the V1 rockets. Here a small memorial to a notorious bombing that happened in Antwerp with a V1 rocket. It came onto a cinema and in one big explosion more than 3,000 people died. Right now we're standing at one of the tunnel entrances from the Dora complex. You can still see the railway tracks going in. There were two lines going into the tunnel. In 1947 the Soviets dynamited everything up here. And as you can see, this one is still closed. The other entrance they opened up as being part of the museum. But yes, railway tracks riding into a very dark history. It's a very special sight, I can say at least. Well, we hope you enjoyed this informative video and that you might have learned something from the past. Right now we are leaving the camp. As you can see, we will leave by car, thankfully. Many people unfortunately had to leave in these wagons until an uncertain future. My future, thankfully, is bright ahead.